It was the dark of night in January. I was the lone state trooper stationed in a little town in the Texas Panhandle. The closest major city was 90 miles away. The phone rings at 3 a.m., and I sit bolt upright and grab my phone. Yeah? I bark into the receiver. I've been working wrecks for the past 15 hours on snowpack. The wind had laid down a little since day shift. It was blowing just enough to hear. Ice was falling on top of the snow. I could hear the ting-ting of ice bouncing off windows and the moan of the cold north wind. The dispatcher's sweet voice kindly said,
Dan, I'm sorry to wake you.
I grumble a sorry for being gripey.
You've got a wreck west of Lakeview in the 658 intersection.
She chimes. Then she finishes.
All the other units are working on multiple crashes on US 287 and I-40.
She knows I was thinking, why can't you call a night unit? I tell her thanks and it's okay, I understand. Then we both hang up. I crawl out of my warm bed and hear my wife roll up into the blankets and mumble a sleepy, "Be safe." And I give her back my standard, "Always, babe." I put on my uniform and add some extra layers, just for the cold. When I got off at sunset, the chill factor was 25 degrees. Whoever said it's always hot in Texas, obviously you've never been to the Panhandle. I threw on my heavy parka and pulled on my Yukon hat over my head and headed outside. And I was thinking to myself, the troops in South Texas don't even get issued these hats. That should have been a clue when I got stationed up here. I walked out of the front door and could see the shiny glaze of ice over the snowpack. Little pieces of ice bounced off my hat and my shoulders as I walked towards my 1987 Ford Mustang. If you're not familiar with this car, it's awesome on dry pavement. It's fast and light, so that pretty much means it's gonna suck on snow and ice. I look at my pony and it resembles an igloo. After breaking off the ice off the door handle and keyhole, I bang on the door to get it open. It cracks and pops as I pull it open. I turn the key and the 50 SSP police engine roars to life. Usually I get a warm fuzzy feeling when I hear that rumbling sound, but I know she's gonna handle like a seal on ice, so I'm not warm and fuzzy about it. I check 10-8 with dispatch and ask for the temperature. This is an 80s model's car, and it doesn't give a heads-up display with a ridiculous amount of information on it like the temperature.
12 degrees.
A familiar voice cracks over the Motorola radio. Good grief, I mumbled to myself. I should have been a Florida trooper. I grabbed my heavy-duty ice scraper and got to work on the windshield. 15 minutes later, I'm ready to go. As I back out of my drive, I tap the brakes lightly. She still slides sideways into the neighbor's yard. Man, it's slick, I think. Put the pony in second and let out on the clutch slowly. She eases out onto the ice cap and idles slowly down the road. It's 25 minutes to get to the next little town that's 12 miles away. As I idle through the town, I see a man at the telephone booth flagging me down. There's a lone street lamp above the booth, and it's directly above the stranger. He's wearing a long black overcoat, and a fedora is perched on his head. His head is bent down slightly, so there's a shadow over his face. I can barely see his nose. This guy is around 6'8", and he says in a deep, shaky voice, "I'm sure glad to see you." Now this guy is creepy. I mean gates of hell creepy. As an armed Texas state trooper, I don't get shaken much, and there ain't much that I'm afraid of. But this dude is a creepy creep. He slides his huge frame into the passenger seat. His knees are way up by his head. Mustangs aren't made for NBA players. The ice is popping and cracking. There's also almost a full moon, so the ice and snow have this eerie glow. Every once in a while, a piece of ice will break loose on a tree. A falling chandelier of ice will cascade off the tree and crash into the ground. I think to myself, this is ridiculous. It's not creepy. Just letting my imagination get stupid. I crank up the heat for the guy and ask him if he was in the wreck. He says yes, like Lurch from the butler from Addams Family. Yes. I verify the crash location and ease out onto the road. It takes us about 8 minutes to get to the scene, which was 3 miles out of town. As I arrive on the intersection, I see a Chevy Suburban lying upside down in the field next to the road. Bet that was a rough ride, I say to Lurch. Ugh, says Lurch. I check out the scene with dispatch. I exit the car to start scooting towards the Suburban. There's a downhill slope to the wreck, so I squat low to get to my center of gravity and as low as I can. I slide off the edge and use my hand as a rudder. At the bottom, I slid almost all the way to the Chevy. Standing up, I scoot forward. As I get to the side of that Chevy, I turn on my streamlight and write the tag number down. For a minute, I think surely he was alone, or at least he would have said something to me. The moonlight was glinting off the glass as I rounded to the back side. The wind had completely laid down. It was now eerily quiet, except for the ice cracking and popping. I turned my streamlight towards the big window that stretched across the back of the Suburban. My light illuminates a 90-year-old dead woman pressed up against the glass, wrapped in a white sheet. I dropped my light, stumbled backwards, almost falling. A cold electric shock shot up my spine. I might have yelled out also, but I can't quite remember. My adrenaline is pumping me full of energy now. I reach for my sidearm as I look back towards the Mustang. I can see the tall fedora-wearing giant sitting there and my mind is racing. What the hell is going on? I'm thinking to myself. Did he just kill this woman? Did she die in the crash and he just forgot to tell me? I unstrap my .357 Magnum at my side and ease up a couple of inches as I stare into the dark form in the car. I decide to take one more look before I put the guy on the ground and arrest him. Retrieving my streamlight, I light up the window again. The old woman is strapped to a gurney. I bent down and looked up at the floor. There they were, little chrome steel latches. I walk up the hill to my car. I open up the door and ask Mr. Creepy what he was doing when he wrecked. He informs me that he's a mortician and was transporting a body. And then I ask him if he doesn't think I could have used that information earlier. He gets a shocked look on his face and apologized. This takes place last night about 1:15 midnight. I was in bed when I heard a frantic knocking. I walked out of my bedroom while the knocking continued. I heard a woman saying, "Please, help me," along with crying, but it was very faint. I looked out my peephole to see no one there. No other doors were being knocked on, just mine. Which by itself is odd, especially since I'm also on the 3rd floor. Why would someone walk all the way up to my apartment if they were in distress? If they really needed help, they would be banging on everyone's door. I called the police immediately, and the dispatcher told me not to open up the door. I've heard of this tactic before, while slightly different, with it being a recording of a baby crying instead of a woman. It's just crazy when I think about it, especially the statistics of stranger abductions usually resulting in murder. Also, it's just sick to try and prey on people's empathy. The police drove by and I saw them using their spotlight to look through the complex, but as of now, I have no idea if they found anyone or if by chance someone was hurt, if they actually found her. I barely slept with all the possibilities of how this person found me, where they saw me, when they followed me, or if they live in this complex themselves. 4'10", I live alone and I don't know many people in my area. I have no family close either. Have they been watching me and know all this? It's making me go crazy just thinking about it. Stay vigilant out there and don't fall for these tactics and let people prey on your empathy. I know not everything you read on the internet is false, and know that not everything you read on the internet is actually false. I heard about people doing this a year ago, and I wonder if I hadn't been aware of this, would I have opened up my door? Where would I be now? Would I even be alive? This world is so When I was 16 or 17, I was coming home to Brooklyn from a movie in Manhattan with my friends. I was the only one who lived in Brooklyn, so I walked home alone from the train. I was used to being out late by myself. I had a midnight curfew, but I frequently broke it because I thought nothing bad would ever happen to me, despite an uptick of and assaults in our neighborhood at the time. This night, however, I was actually slated to get home on time for once. It was the summer after I graduated high school, I was feeling amazing. I had a little to drink and a little to smoke. Felt like I was on top of the world. It was so hot out that night. And I remembered that I was wearing this long sheer cape thing with a very tight and very revealing dress underneath. However, because of my fun little outfit, I was feeling myself and being stupid, taking selfies while I walked down the streets, listening to music with both headphones in, not paying attention to my surroundings. I think I even sang as I walked. I got to my building after finishing my 10-minute walk from the train, walked up the steps to my apartment. We lived in a brownstone with apartments in it. Ours was on the 3rd floor, and we had a gate at the bottom of the steps separating us from the sidewalk. I pulled out my headphones and began to fumble with my keys at the top of the steps. Just as I found the right key, still humming to myself and thinking about how great my night was, I heard the latch on the gate clank as if it were being opened. I turned around and I saw this random man standing at the gate, staring up at me. He was young, probably in his early 20s, wearing a gray hoodie with the hood up, covering part of his face. But I could see his eyes, and immediately I knew something was off because how blank yet nervous his expression was. One hand was on the handle of the gate, as if he were about to open it completely, but stopped once I turned around. Somehow my fight or flight instinct didn't kick in yet. It was probably the alcohol. And I cautiously called down, "Can I help you?" He didn't respond. I looked him over more closely and realized that then his other hand, the one not on the gate, was moving, fast, low, near his waist. I registered then that he was touching himself. I gasped, and within milliseconds, he was sprinting up the stairs behind me, reaching out his hand to grab me. My brain finally clicked into place, and I started screaming at the top of my lungs as I jammed my key into the door and slammed it behind me. I ran up the stairs to my apartment screaming for my dad, not even stopping to make sure the door was locked, thinking that if he followed me upstairs, he'd soon be met by my very tall father and our very loud dogs who slept in the bedroom right next to our apartment door. As I looked over my shoulder while tearing my way upstairs, I saw his face pressed up against the glass window, still watching me, but now his eyes were furious. I ran into our apartment still screaming to my parents to call the police. Dad went downstairs and looked around, but he was long gone. The police came anyways after my mom called and came upstairs to take my statement so they could make their report. The 2 cops who showed up asked me to describe him. I did, and they said they'd cruise around looking for him. Regardless if he was found or not, the detective would call me soon to make a more detailed report. They never called me. There were many more assaults that continued to take place in my neighborhood for the rest of that summer. I shudder every single time I think about what would have happened that night if I hadn't taken out my headphones before I began unlocking my door. I don't know how long he was following me for. As far as I know, he was never caught. And from that point on, for those last few weeks before I left for college, I would call my dad and make him meet me at the train station so he could walk me home safely. Now as an adult, I am far more cautious than I was as a teenager. I'm always extra aware of my surroundings, especially at night. I don't look at my phone while I walk home. I will never get that image of his blank stare as he lunged towards me out of my head. I'll never forget the feeling in the pit of my stomach as I realized that he'd followed me home, watching me, touching himself, and was now waiting to strike. It was like being a deer, realizing it's being stalked by a tiger because the tiger accidentally stepped on a twig and gave itself away, right before it could pounce on its prey. A former EMT firefighter here. One night, we got a call to do a wellness check on someone who dialed 911 but didn't respond to the operator. We pull up to the address, and the house looks perfectly quaint. A little old lady greets us at the door. We ask her if she was the one who placed the call, but she told us she lived alone and it wasn't her. Been her alone since her husband died. We barely got back to the station before another call comes in, same address as before. So we drive back out and talk to the lady once again, then leave once more. Just as we get back to the station, same call, same address, no response. We drive out there again thinking the old lady must have been confused. But this time when we pulled into the driveway, she wasn't at the door to greet us. There was no reply at the door, but it was unlocked. We take a peek inside to find the old lady was on the floor and wasn't breathing. We rushed in to help and got her to the hospital and got her back to stable condition. When she woke up in the ambulance, she claimed that she still didn't call us. We arrived almost immediately after she'd fallen. Before she was admitted to the hospital, she asked me and another EMT if we could bring her knitting needles and a bag of clothes with her to the hospital. I offered to pick up her stuff because I had a friend who lived in that area and we were going to hang out anyway. So later on, I pick up my friend and drive back to the lady's house. I ran inside and grabbed the bag of knitting stuff while my buddy sat in the car. But as I was leaving, I swear I felt a hand on my back and heard a voice say, "Thank you." When I get back into my car, my friend asked me, "Hey, why couldn't that lady's husband just bring her stuff to the hospital?" I explained that she told me that her husband was dead, and after I said that, my friend said, "But I just saw an old guy in the window. He smiled and waved at me." At first, I refused to believe anything supernatural, so I called the police and asked them to do a sweep of the house. In the moment, I was thinking it was a squatter. Nothing was out of the ordinary, and no one was inside. I later brought my friend to visit the lady. He described the old man he saw in the window. The lady almost immediately started tearing up and said, "That's my Harold." I had a call to a residence for a mental evaluation, or a 5150. Anyway, I get there and speak to a 50-something-year-old woman who states her 20-something-year-old son is under the influence of an unknown drug and kept repeating that he can't go back into his bedroom because there's an old man hanging in his room. She stated she was too scared to go into his room and investigate it for herself because he constantly brings over friends that are drug addicts and is unsure if his claims were true or not. I then go speak to the son, who is clearly under the influence of a stimulant. He goes on to tell me that he was told by a spirit not to enter his bedroom because her father was dressed in his Class A military uniform and was hanging inside his bedroom. I checked the room out for myself, and of course, no body was hanging in the room. As I'm in the middle of explaining to the mother that there was nothing in the bedroom, a veteran officer arrives on the scene to assist me. He pulls me over to the side and states that earlier in his career, he had responded to this residence before. In that same bedroom, he had to investigate a suicide by hanging of an older male subject. He didn't remember all the details, so I looked it up for myself in our report management system in my patrol car. Sure enough, the officer was right. The subject who died was a World War II veteran. He was dressed in his military uniform and hung himself. In my mind, I always thought that when they purchased the home, this incident would be disclosed to them. However, I thought the mother would have mentioned it to me if it had been disclosed to her. She was genuinely concerned about her son and those allegations. Okay, so this happened to me when I was an 18 or 19-year-old female in college in a small town in the South. I had a terrible college experience in general, but this just added to the shit show that was my first year. To set the scene for you, I lived in a suite building that had a parking garage attached to it. There were probably 4 or 5 levels to that garage. The top level of this parking garage was on the ground level, and the suite building was maybe a 5-minute walk down a sidewalk to the entrance of those suites. There's a little room with windows that housed the elevator close to that sidewalk. My boyfriend at the time lived off campus. I hated being on campus so much that I spent most of my time at his house in a neighboring town. I had an 8 a.m. class, so I would usually go back to my suite at some point, usually late night, early morning. One night, and this night in particular, I got back around 2 a.m. The parking garage was pretty full this night, and I had to park at the furthest end from the building, closer to the ramp that went to the lower level. I'm terrified of being inside parking garages, so I usually parked on top. It was really dark, and I usually would call my sister or my boyfriend if I was ever scared. But on this night, it was normal and I didn't feel the need to bother anyone so late. I was almost to that sidewalk I told you about. I noticed someone in the little room where the elevator was. They had been behind a wall, but I saw them emerge. He had not come out of the elevator, as I would have seen the doors open through the windows. I didn't really get a great look at him, but I could tell that it was a middle-aged man. I found it odd that he was on campus so late, as all the people living in this building were young and mainly freshmen. I tried my best to just ignore him and continue on my way. But as I reached that sidewalk, he came out and started walking behind me. I tried to be rational and not freak out, but the further I walked, the more I realized he was getting closer and closer to me. There's one of those posts nearby that you can hit to notify campus police, but something inside of me told me that I had to not let him know that I knew he was there and that he was scaring me. In just a few seconds' time, I had to make a split, quick decision. I just started sprinting down that sidewalk, and I immediately heard him pick up his speed and start running as well. He was chasing me. There were 3 entrances to that building, and I usually used the furthest one because my room was on the far end of that building. But as soon as I got to the first entrance, I quickly swiped my card and entered, slamming that door shut behind me. He was right there on the other side of the door. He made eye contact for just a second or two, then ran the other way and out of my view. I was so fucking scared, and to this day, I wonder what his intentions were. It's really probably for the best that I didn't find out. The next morning, I woke up to an email about a strange man that had been spotted on campus. Still to this day, it gives me the creeps to even think about that night. So before I go into the story, I'll just explain that in the lead up to this particular incident, I had a number of strange attempted break-ins and occurrences. So much so that I had to install cameras with motion sensors on every entrance and exit in my apartment, just so I could make sure that no one was there when I got in at night. One of the very first instances was encountering a man standing in my room when I walked in broad daylight. I had stuff go missing the week before, and my roommate said he had the sense he was being watched in there that week. So now to the story. I'm on my way home from a night out and start going through my phone. I see I have a message on Tinder and go to check it out. The girl looks attractive, and I think she's got to be a catfish because she sounds so eager to meet me. And I know that when something sounds too good to be true, it always is. I get home and she sends me her address. I check it and she's literally a 5-minute walk from me. I'm drunk and it sounds appealing. Even just the attention, but again, I don't believe her. So I say, video call me. She surprisingly agrees. I see the call coming in and I'm not really sure what to expect. But again, surprisingly, it is that person. She seems nice. She says she's high and wants to smoke and have some company. So I agree. Now I'm excited, like maybe I'll actually really hit it off with her and she only lives a stone throw away. So I have a shower, grab some liquor, and head over. I'm on the way. I'm walking. As I'm nearing her place, I look across the street through this archway that leads into the courtyard for this apartment block. At the end of that arched corridor, I see a man glance out at me, then pretend to look at his phone. I walk past, and I really don't know why, but I'm sure it has to do with the paranoia that I've been experiencing. But I stop and decide to walk back. As I come to that arch again, I see the guy's head peek out around the corner. Making eye contact, he juts back rapidly. When I'm in full view of that arched tunnel again, the man is seemingly immersed in his phone once more. He starts walking around the corner and then down the street. I stand there just to see if he'll look back at me, and he doesn't. And then I hear a girl's voice behind me. It's the girl from Tinder. She's like, "Hey, come on in." It feels like I'm on an episode of To Catch a Predator, but she's clearly in her early 30s. So I start to relax again, but only briefly. We walk up a flight of steps to get to her apartment, but then she starts veering down a flight of steps and tells me she has a basement apartment. I continue to follow her. I'm calm until I get into the living room, and I really don't know how to describe it, but there was just something making me feel very nervous. It was just so bare. There was just a sofa, a kitchen table, just the complete opposite of what I imagined. I've dated girls, and this just wasn't a girl's apartment. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone. So now, she's like, just come in my room. And I get this overwhelming sense of fear. Alarm bells are ringing, red flags shooting up. Something telling me, this is a trap. Do not do it. Then I try to tell myself, okay, dude, you're just being paranoid. Just relax. So I follow her to her room. It's a tiny box room. There's a bed and an empty bedside drawer. Now, the thing that weirds me out the most is there's another door, which I can only assume leads to a bathroom. That door is closed. There's obviously a pool of water coming from underneath the door, like something had overflowed but stopped. I'm about to ask her about it, but then her hand cups and squeezes my crotch area. I'm taken aback at how forward she starts to become. She kisses me while guiding my hands down the front of her sweats, inside of her underwear, and whispers for me to take my clothes off. I start to open up my shirt, and before I can, she's already naked. She sits on the bed and starts opening and getting my pants down, straight into giving me oral sex. Sorry about all the details, but I'm just trying to explain to you. 1, her over-eagerness to get me naked, and 2, the overwhelming feeling that she was trying to distract me or put me in some kind of vulnerable position. She starts to lie back and pull me on top of her and making over-the-top moaning noises. Then, I can distinctly hear something outside the door in the living room. The sound of like clothes rubbing against clothes when you're moving in a really quiet place. And I hear footsteps. Not a lot, but just like someone is sneaking around. As we're kissing, she tells me my watch is catching her skin and asked if I could take it off. I find this strange, but it gives me a chance to gather myself. I sit up to take it off. I ask her why there's water leaking out of the bathroom, and I don't know if she genuinely misheard me or was just completely sidestepping my question, but she just answers yes, I've got water here. Grabs a bottle of water from the side of the bed. I don't re-ask that question. I open up the bottle and take a sip. I then hear that clothes on clothes light footsteps movement again. I can feel like there's someone right outside the door, and my heart starts to skip a beat. I can also feel my lips start to burn inexplicably. I think she can feel my uneasiness and starts to kiss the back of my neck, whispering for me to f her. Now I can't tell you how much I wanted this to be real and not be a setup, to believe that this girl actually wanted me. But even if she really did like me, she was way too eager. I say aloud, what time is it? I grab my phone. I look at the messages where she told me her address and I memorize it. Open it up and go to WhatsApp and pretend to send an audio message. Hey guys, I'm at 123 Street, basement apartment. I can see the wide-eyed surprised look on her face. I need one of you to come pick me up right now. I can't explain to you what's going on right now, but if you can't come, send someone to that apartment. If I'm not outside, then I'm in trouble and call the police. She pauses, at a loss for words, and then asks why I'm so paranoid. I ask her who's outside, and she doesn't even deny that anyone is out there. Just a friend. No other explanation. I start to get dressed and feel relieved, but I also think that I'm overthinking this. I tell her goodbye and she says see you later and starts texting on her phone. I open up that door. The room outside is way darker than it was when we went through it first, but I can make out the silhouette of mostly everything. I don't see any other room though and wonder where the f her friend is or why there is someone in that room, just chilling in the complete darkness. I have the jitters walking all the way through. It's only a short trip, but I'm envisioning someone jumping out from nowhere, bludgeoning me with something. I get up to the stairs and go up. I rush to the door and can't even figure out how to reopen it. I can feel someone is coming up behind me, up those stairs. My adrenaline kicks in 100 times. It's her. She opens up the door for me. I say thank you and I leave. I check my cameras before going back into my apartment. Nothing has triggered them. I sit in the kitchen and wonder why I was being so crazy. I go back to my room and get into bed. And surprisingly, I get a call from that same girl again, and she's being cool. She tells me to stop being so paranoid and come back. Now in the moment, I'm actually half thinking about it. Thinking about why was I acting so insane. But then, something just clicks. A theory that I've been having that would make sense of all of this. I tell her that I can't. She asks me why. I tell her that my roommate is on the phone with the cops. And to stay the fuck away. I've got cameras everywhere. She pauses and then says, which still to this day gives me the creeps.
I know your roommate isn't home yet from work.
And then just hangs up. Weeks before this, as I explained earlier, I had a few attempted break-ins. What I didn't understand was how they were getting in. The apartment next door to me, the only other one on that floor, was occupied by the landlord's brother, and he has what I'm guessing is dementia or something similar. He hoards and takes random things in and out ever so often. I haven't seen him in a while, but I heard movement in the apartment. I knew what was happening. It all just clicked. People were coming down the fire escape and in through his window, and I think possibly staying there, stealing from him. Using my Wi-Fi as I had the code left up on the wall. I think they decided to rob me, knowing my roommate wouldn't be home until 4 at least, and someone watching me while I was out in the neighborhood. When they realized I was going home early, they tried to distract me. I told the landlord I thought people were going through the apartment. I know the window was unlocked and he stayed there with an elderly lady on the 2nd floor, who looked after him. There hasn't really been much activity since, so I hope this is the end of it. I didn't call the police because I wasn't sure if I was being crazy, but deep down, I know I'm not. Hey everyone, thanks for listening if you stuck around to this point. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you, yes you, have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can also stalk me on Instagram. All of these linkies are below. What's going on everybody? Sorry, I meant to put this episode out a few days ago, but this Reddit blackout has really interrupted that for me because r/let's not meet, where I have a bunch of permission to get stories from people already, I do not have access to them right now, so it's kind of frustrating. But so I had to search and find and use other subreddits and find a couple of more other places, so this one's just kind of all pushed together. Hope you enjoyed it. There's some really good ones in here. I know that first story is a really good one. Sorry. And I've heard it before. I'm pretty sure Let's Read has told it, but I really liked it. Want to do my take on it, my own version of it, and it's cool. I hope you enjoyed it. There's some good spooky ones in here, and yeah, I'm not sure what next episode will be something themed, so look out for that. Probably Monday, Tuesday. I know I'm having a missing 411 episode will be out at some point next week as well. That probably won't be the next one. It'll be the following episode. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do something different, something new for the next one to switch it up a little bit, and so people don't get too stale, you know, with the same ones, because whatever. Anyways, not gonna ramble. I'm about to go hang with the homies here in a little bit, so I hope you all have a very good weekend, great weekend if you're listening to us then, or if you're listening to this next week. I hope you have a great week then, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Cheers.